Good morning, good evening, good day, wherever you happen to be watching this video. Our goal today is to learn how to construct a frequency distribution and histogram. We're going to kind of kill two birds with one stone here today. What we have listed on our left is a list of 100 FICO scores, and our goal is to construct a frequency distribution and histogram beginning with a lower class limit of 400 and a class width of 50. A couple of vocabulary words that we need to get squared away here. I've got a lower class limit beginning at 400 with a class width of 50. Just to lay some groundwork, that means we're going to be constructing from 400 to 449 as a class. That's our classification of our range of FICO scores. There's going to be a FICO score that's going to be between 400 and 449 that will go in our first class. That consumes that 400 with a width of 50. Remember, you start counting at 400 and would stop counting at 449. Our next class is going to be 450 to 499 and so on down the line. Main thing to focus here is that our lower class limits match as a difference of 50. So 400 to 450 is where that width is going. So now we have 500 to 549. Bear with me for just 1 minute here while we load these up. 600 through 649, and then I've got 650 through 699, 700 through 749, 750 through 799, 800 through 849, and our last class that we will need will be 800 through 899. This gives us this classification of, we want to know how many are between each of these areas. So this is my FICO range. How many happen to be between 400 and 449? Now there's 100 on this list on the left, and one could argue we could sort them and then we could count them one by one, but let's let Excel do the work for us. I'm working in the newest version of Excel, the 2013 version, and I'd like to show you first on how to make sure you have the add-ins to do the frequency distributions. To do that, we want to go to the File tab, and on the File tab we'll notice that it opens up to allow us to add options. Under the Options tab, we're going to want to do add-ins. Under our add-ins, let it come up. We'll have Manage Excel Add-ins come up down on the bottom. We're going to hit the Go button on that. When that comes up, you'll notice that you have these available add-ins. Analysis Tool Pack is what we're after today. That's what's going to give us these other options or things that might be useful to you in future. Today, what we want to do to make this histogram and let Excel count our frequencies for us, Analysis Tool Pack is where it's at. Now on my data ribbon, so across on the top on the tab for the data tab, on my data ribbon I have this data analysis. Before that, that option would not have been available to me. Under the data analysis option, we are then allowed to choose these options available to us, and histogram is what we're trying to do. Frequency distributions will come for free in the creation of a histogram. Creating the histogram, we have our input range, and our input range is a fancy word for asking us what is your raw data. We can enter it in one by one separated by commas, but the most efficient use is to use Excel. So we're just going to click on the spreadsheet button. That will become smaller and will highlight our raw data. So we have 100 FICO scores that we're going to analyze, and then we'll just close that up and we end up with that being our input range, telling it Excel to go to cells A1 through A100, and we're good to go. Now we need a bin range. Unfortunately, I didn't make my bin range. In Excel, we're going to want to know what the bin is going to be. And the bin is just a fancy word for identifying what is our upper class boundaries. I'll put them off here on the side just for a second so we can see what we have going on here. And our upper class boundaries are 449.5 and then down to 499.5, because that is the boundary that would be the boundary or tipping point between being below and being into the 400 to 449, or being above and landing in the 450. And so those are going to be our upper class boundaries, and they'll all be 50 apart because we have a class width of 50, and so all of our boundaries would be listed here. Let's go back to creating that histogram. Histogram being an OK. Input range, let's go select that again, A1 through A100, because that's where it's going to be. That's our data. Our bin range, now that we have one, we'll create it. It'll be right here. Let's go grab our bin, call that good. Now, I want to output someplace. I'm going to select in my sheet. One of the things that's kind of funky with Excel, when you click that radio button for the output range, make sure you click in this box before you go away. Otherwise, your cursor is highlighting here and it's going to kind of mess up on you. We're going to just set it right there just to give it a spot to go, and then we'll play with the numbers after it comes out. I'm also going to click on the chart output. That's going to give us the actual chart or the picture image of the histogram as it comes out. Let Excel think for a second, and bam, here we go. We've got the bin, we've got the frequencies, we've got the chart. We'll come back and clean up the chart here in just a minute, but for now let's talk about what this bin and what these frequencies mean. This means that at 449.5 or less there was one occurrence. Between this bin and this bin there was one more occurrence, and so on down the line. Excel puts it in this format. I'll argue it's not as clean as the others might be. I'm going to propose that we select this right here and paste it over here, and now you've got this nice table that we can look at as a frequency distribution. So we've got this table giving us what is our frequency distributions across these regions, and there we have a frequency distribution. One could also argue, and we'll talk about making the graph clean. We'll clean up the graph here next. I don't know that we need this frequency scale or key legend because we only have one item on our graph, so let's make that just go away. All I did there was just I highlighted it and hit my delete button. Let's ramp it up and make it nice and big so we can actually see what's going on here. Now you'll notice, well, first off, the title says histogram, so let's select on that and let's change that to be FICO scores. So we've got that going on. The frequency, I like that label, and this label for bin doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and let's actually just call it credit scores. Now we've got something that at least our legend makes some good sense of what the X and Y axis are giving us. In a histogram, when we read a histogram, it looks like there was one occurrence here and then no occurrences, and then one occurrence and no occurrence. We want, if there's an actual zero in our frequency counts, we want that to be reflected by having no bar. But in the world of reading a histogram, if there's actually data that goes from this class to this class, there's one, we want to make those bars rub up against each other so it doesn't look like there's this gap. The easiest way to do this in the new Excel is to highlight on your chart. So you've got your chart and go up here to Chart Tools. When you're on your Chart Tools, there's a quick layout option, and that quick layout option will give you the opportunity to close up those gaps, and it comes together really nice and clean, nice and fast. There's probably 8 ways to do it. In the new Excel, that's the fastest and most efficient way to make it happen. And now we've got these bars close together. A lot of people complain that they like to see those lines between, and if we right click on it, you'll notice that you can quickly go to an outline and you can make that outline go black, and so then you can actually see the bars. It makes it a little bit cleaner, well, not a little bit cleaner, a lot cleaner, so we can actually see what's going on. I'm going to spread it out a little bit because I'm going to change this scale down here. I do not like this 449.5 and 499.5 living in the middle of this bar. It's just not representative of what's going on, because it's really this entire range. It doesn't mean that those were 449.5. It means they were somewhere between 400 and 449. That number just doesn't fit for me. So what I'm going to say that we should do, notice what happens when I'm highlighting on this. These two are highlighted. It's telling me, if you're looking at this chart, this is where this data is coming from. The 449.5 is coming from whatever is written here. If I just change that to a 1, boom, that's going to change to a 1. That's where that stuff is coming from. If I come along and change that to a 6, well, all of a sudden my bar is going to get higher. Okay, so let's put it back to where it was on that 1, so we got the right scale going. But I can change this to be whatever I want, and that grid's going to change with me. And I'm going to argue, if we highlight this and copy it and paste it here, we're going to get a more representative represent, it was something people can read. They can say this is between 400 and 449 there was one occurrence, between 450 and 499 there was one occurrence, and so on down the line. And we can make a histogram really pretty quick, pretty tidy, and some features in the new Excel make it happen a little faster maybe than in the old versions. And that is your histogram and frequency distribution chart example.